West and her little brother Seth were being babysat by their 16-year-old neighbor, Billy Schaefer. While watching a horror movie, Billy decided that he wanted to molest Sarah. So while Sarah was sleeping, he went ahead and molested her. He then stabbed her and mutilated her body. It was later found out that he also shot her in the head and he bit her on her thigh and breast. Billy then put Sarah's body into 2 trash bags and threw the trash bags over an embankment. Billy was arrested and openly confessed to this horrific crime. He pled guilty to aggravated murder and was sentenced to life with possibility of parole. On December 2nd, 2019, Billy did go in front of a judge and his request to go on parole was denied due to the horrific nature of this crime.
Do y'all ever think about how bizarre the 2016 presidential election was? Like, aside from the fact that a literal reality TV star won, do y'all remember Ted Cruz, the Republican senator from Texas who was running? I'll show a picture of him. So basically everybody was like, he looks like a creep. He looks like he enjoys the company of children, if you know what I mean. And so people on the internet just started accusing him of being the Zodiac Killer for some reason. And it got to the point where the entire internet was accusing Ted Cruz of being the Zodiac Killer. And it literally got to the point where his team felt like they had to speak out and address it and say Ted Cruz is not the Zodiac Killer, because all those murders happened before Ted Cruz was even born. And then, do y'all remember after he lost, the nomination, from his main Twitter account, he just tweeted one of the Zodiac ciphers with no context after he lost?
18-year-old Kevin Davis got into an argument with his mother, Kimberly Hill, when he had asked for permission to kill himself. When she got upset, he then decided to kill her instead. He tried to strangle her, but he could not overpower her, so instead he beat her in the head with a hammer. Kimberly was still alive, so Kevin reached his hand into her skull and squeezed her brains to finish her off. He then lost his virginity to his mother's corpse. He fled the house after the incident and confessed to a couple who then called the police. Kevin confessed to police and was sentenced to life in prison. When asked why he did it, he replied that his mother was the best and she did nothing to deserve it. Quote, "I don't have standards, I don't have morals, a body is a body, a piece of meat."
This is why you never judge a book by its cover. On the evening of August 7th, 1985, police received a call about a mentally ill woman attacking her family with a gun. When police arrived at her residence, they didn't hear any shooting or hear any noises coming from inside the house. Police tried yelling for the shooter to come outside, but when she didn't listen, they went in. Inside was a massacre. All 5 family members have been killed, including 2 young children. One of the deceased was Sheila Bamber, the mentally ill woman the police had been called about, and she was holding a rifle that was tucked up against her neck with a gunshot wound underneath her chin. This case gained massive media attention, putting pressure on the police to solve it as quickly as possible, and so they jumped to the conclusion that this had to be a murder-suicide perpetrated by Sheila. But one detective felt like they were missing something and kept investigating. And sure enough, he found something hidden under the stairs at the crime scene that meant Sheila could not be the shooter. To find out what's under the stairs and who the shooter is, check out the Murders at White House Farm.
Welcome to Crime TikTok. Today we're going to talk about children who have killed. In this video, we're going to focus on the 11-year-old girl, Mary Flora Bell. Many believe that she wouldn't have stopped killing if she wasn't arrested. The first child who was murdered by Mary was 4-year-old Martin Brown. He was found on the floor of an abandoned house by a group of boys that were playing in the area. Blood and saliva were dropping down his cheek. Soon after, these young boys saw Mary and her best friend Norma coming towards the house. However, during the investigation, the police found no evidence of foul play and left his cause of death as open. This was also because they found an empty bottle of aspirin nearby the body. A few weeks later, another boy's body was found. It was 3-year-old Brian Howe. He was strangled to death. He was found in an industrial area of the town and he had been mutilated on the thighs and genitals. And the pair of scissors which were used were right next to him. The letter M was also carved with a razor on his belly. Mary stood out as suspicious to the police because she was happy about the murder. And she got caught.
Weirdest Crime Facts, Parts 1 through 25. This photo is the definition of fear. An LA woman was evading a home intruder by hiding on her roof, and she managed to grab her phone and dial 911. She said that her greatest fear was that he would try to hide where she was hiding. Juan Catalan was put on death row and spent nearly 6 months in prison for the murder of a teenage girl. He was the prime suspect only until his lawyer came across some unused footage from Curb Your Enthusiasm. The footage proved that Catalan had been at a Dodgers game with his daughter at the time of the murder. Joe Arity was a mentally disabled 23-year-old man who was falsely executed for the rape and murder of a teenage girl in 1939. Joe was known as the happiest man on death row, for he likely didn't even know that he was being put to death. For his last meal, he requested ice cream and even saved some for after the execution.
True crime in 60 seconds. Let's go. You guys wanted spooky? Buckle up. 12-year-olds Anissa and Morgan were obsessed with Slender Man that they found on creepypasta.com. They were so afraid of him that they actually planned to kill their best friend Peyton to be deemed worthy by Slender Man. On May 31st, 2014, they planned to tape her mouth shut and stab her in the neck and run away. They didn't follow through with this, so then they also planned to stab her in a local park bathroom. They didn't go through with this, and during a game of hide and seek in David's Park in Waukesha, Wisconsin, they actually stabbed her 19 times while pinning her down to the ground. They told her that they were going to go get help, but then they fled. Peyton managed to drag herself to the side of the road where she would then be found by a cyclist. The girls were found, and they had the knife on them. In February 2018, they were both found not guilty by mental disease or defect. They were both sentenced to long periods of time in a mental institution.
Don't watch this one unless you're ready to cry. In 1939, a mentally disabled 23-year-old man named Joe Arity was falsely accused of the rape and murder of a teenage girl. He was sentenced to death in Colorado, and the moments leading to his execution are nothing short of heartbreaking. Joe was known for playing with a toy train given to him by the warden, who called Joe the happiest prisoner on death row. It was clear, however, that Joe didn't understand the situation or his impending execution. For his last meal, he requested ice cream and even saved some for after the execution. He was reported to have smiled while being brought to the gas chamber and was only momentarily nervous until the warden grabbed his hand and reassured him. Arity was officially pardoned 72 years after his death, after evidence had proven that he was coerced into confession.
John Jones was a husband and a recent father who decided to go cave exploring in the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah. While exploring with some friends, they decided to challenge themselves by passing through a narrow passageway that leads to a larger room, which was called the birth canal. John squeezed through the opening and made his way forward, only to realize that there was no larger opening. The group had missed the birth canal and were now crawling through a passageway that didn't lead to anywhere. John couldn't move forward anymore, and he could no longer turn back on his own. He was stuck upside down, with his hands pinned under him, with only his feet sticking out. Search and rescue came and set up a pulley system because drilling him out was too slow and too painful. But the pulley system could only work if they broke John's legs. After 27 hours stuck inside the cave upside down, John had died of positional asphyxiation. It was too dangerous and difficult to retrieve John's body from the cave, so authorities closed off that section. To this day, John remains wedged inside of the Nutty Buddy Cave.
A lot of the creepy photos you see on the internet are just not real, except unfortunately these ones, like this class of '99 photo. In the top corner of this picture are students making fake gun signs with their hands, including Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who, just a few weeks after this photo was taken, shot up their high school, Columbine. Unbeknownst to this diver in Australia, he caught on camera the moment that Tina Watson was sinking to the bottom of the ocean after her husband, Gabe Watson, killed her on their honeymoon. And this is the last photo of Regina K. Walters, who was just 14 years old, and it was taken by serial killer Robert Ben Rhodes.
Medieval torture device part 8. This is called the head crusher. The victim's head will be placed in between the top and the bottom bar. And the executioner then slowly turned the latch on top, so that way the head can be crushed. And sadly, it would actually take quite a long time to pass away until someone's jaw pops out and their eyes as well. Sometimes, to make the torture worse, the executioner might take a metal pipe and hit the top as well to bring the victim more pain.
This is why parents should believe their kids. In 2010, a 15-year-old boy started to notice that the door to his attic, which was in his bedroom, was always open. One day, when his mom's giving him a hard time about being lazy, he's like, well, you're one to talk. You always leave my attic door open. She's like, I haven't touched your attic door in months, and nobody else has either. Not easily frightened, the boy decides to leave the attic door open. And so he's laying in bed, and he kind of looks over at the door, and standing in the door frame is a figure staring